What's up, guys? Derek, moreplates.moredates.com. Today we're going to be talking about Gorilla Mode pre-workout. So this is my pre-workout formula. You probably heard me talk about it once or twice before, and it's finally here. So I'm just going to quickly summarize some takeaways from it, and then the second part of the video will basically be a very, very detailed elaboration on each ingredient, what they do, mechanism of action, what you can expect from the dosages of the ingredients, how they interact with one another, as well as detailing just how they complement each other to maximize the pump, strength, endurance, cognitive enhancement, and overall performance of this product. So I'm confident that this is the most potent and comprehensive pre-workout on the market right now. So getting into the supplement facts, per full daily dose, we have 9,000 milligrams of L-citrulline. So that's pure L-citrulline, not inflated with malic acid on the label like most companies are going to do with their citrulline malate, which I'm going to delve into in elaborate detail later in the video, how companies are misleading you and making you think you're getting way more citrulline than you are by blending malic acid and inflating their label claims. So we have 9,000 milligrams of pure L-citrulline, 5,000 milligrams of creatine monohydrate, so 5 grams, your full daily dose, 3,000 milligrams of Glycer Pump, and this is standardized to 65% glycerol powder, 2,500 milligrams of betaine anhydrous, 1,500 milligrams of L-tyrosine, 1,000 milligrams of agmatine sulfate, 500 milligrams of Kanna, also known as Sceletium tortuosum, 350 milligrams of caffeine anhydrous, 350 milligrams of N-phenylethyl dimethylamine citrate, 10 milligrams of bioperine, and 400 micrograms of huperzine A. So as far as comparing Gorilla Mode to other pre-workouts on the market, I think this is the most maxed out formula in all aspects. So the full daily dose is 2 scoops. Even a half dose of 1 scoop is still far more potent than the majority of pre-workouts on the market at their max dosages. So I basically just included exactly what I would want to see in a pre-workout if I was the customer, even at the obvious detriment of our margins. Like the concentration of L-citrulline, for example, just absurdly high. Like it's not easy to make money on a product like this. So, but I wanted to put out something good. So I want this to be an industry disruptor quality product. And every time I see your, like famous fitness influencer put out a supplement line, they just employ somebody underneath them to formulate it, because honestly they don't even use this stuff, nor do they care, and they just use it because they're selling it now. So all of a sudden they use this kind of stuff, and the problem is it's blatantly obvious that they don't really know what they're talking about half the time, and they don't formulate these products themselves, and they just claim, oh, our product, we use accurate high dosing and we're, the best company because X. And it's like when they're trying to break down their products and why they're even beneficial, they can barely even string together a coherent sentence about what each ingredient does, let alone why it was included, the synergy with the other ingredients, the mechanism of action of anything in their product at all. So I don't know. I don't really like it, to be honest. And at the end of the day, most people don't know what goes into making an effective product. They just, they'll go to the manufacturer and ask for, what's your pre-workout formula that we can private label and slap our brand name on. And then, they'll get a run of the mill. It's basically like a cookie cutter version of a pre-workout that has good margins and is designed for a company to profit off of. But it's like there's no thought put into it. There's no attempt to even make a product that's gonna, be better than the rest in the industry. It's just your run-of-the-mill pre-workout with another label slapped on it. So at the end of the day, if you've experienced Gorilla Mind Nootropics, it's me formulating the products, and they work because I actually put in them what I would want to see in a product myself. And the same goes for Gorilla Mode. If I didn't have Gorilla Mode and I was going to go get a pre-workout, I would get a pre-workout with a massive dose of L-citrulline, a solid hit of stimulants, a saturation dose of creatine, and all the standard ingredients that you and I both know work. You have your nitric oxide precursor at a high dose. You have your creatine saturation dose. You have a good solid blend of stims at a high dose that is going to get you locked in and in the zone. You don't really need a whole lot more than that. Anything else is icing on the cake, but it's it needs to be in there at a certain dose and has to be in there in certain forms for it to even work in the first place. And most companies are just going to skimp out on this kind of stuff. So then you have to go buy their other product that's complementary to make you actually get the efficacious dose of that ingredient. You have to go stack this with this to get this amount of an ingredient. And that's just not how the Gorilla Mind products are designed. Like, I've made them so they're turnkey. And like certain things like creatine, for example, like why is it that a pre-workout, it's so rare to see a pre-workout that just straight up has 5 grams of creatine monohydrate in it, you know? And it's like creatine's pretty cheap. So the reason is these companies want you to go buy their creatine product, and they'll intentionally manipulate their ingredient profile to be deficient in several areas to make sure you have to also go buy their, you know, whatever product in order to get the full efficacious dose of it. So with my products, everything's turnkey. So you don't need to go buy a separate creatine product from us. You don't need to go buy our pump product, which we don't have yet, but I'll probably make one in the future because I want something that's stim free myself. And I'm basically just putting out formulas that I would actually use personally. Like, you don't have to go get our pump formula to get a max dose of L-citrulline, which, you know, most other companies will put like a half-ass dose of L-citrulline in their, you know, stimulant dense pre-workout to make sure you go buy like their other thing. You don't have to stack a bunch of extra stimulants on top of it. You don't need to use Gorilla Mind Rush or Gorilla Mind Smooth to get the most out of this product. They can complement it, but it's not like they're not mandatory at all, to be honest. Like, if you're seeking maximum focus, maximum cognitive enhancement, maximum pump, maximum endurance, maximum intracellular hydration, like, this product has you fully covered. Like, you don't need to go buy anything else. As far as the flavor and mixability, so the flavor we chose to start with is Tiger's Blood. It's basically a mixture of watermelon, strawberry, and coconut. And we also developed a fruit punch flavor and a mango peach flavor, which were both very good, but the branding of Tiger's Blood with Gorilla Mode just seemed like it just really clicked. So we wanted to go with that, to be honest. Like, the branding was just too good to pass up, to be honest. So the next 4 flavors we might knock out are the fruit punch and mango peach because they're a lot more mainstream, but Tiger's Blood is still good, still very good. It's probably like a 7 or 8 out of 10. The branding's just sick in my opinion, so that's why we went with that. Honestly, there's such a high concentration of ingredients in this product that I'm happy that it just didn't end up tasting like ass in general. Like, we were expecting it to be nearly impossible to like create a flavor system that was going to work with this ingredient profile, and fortunately it wasn't the case, and it does not taste like ass. It actually tastes pretty decent. It also mixes really well considering the concentration of L-citrulline and glycer pump and all the other ingredients in the product. You're just gonna have to use a decent amount more water than you would with your normal pre-workout. Like, normally you might use, I don't know, 8 to 10 ounces of water or something. With this, you're probably gonna need to use like 12 to 14 ounces or something because there's just simply way more active ingredients in the product. And you'll see that once you open it and you see these scoops, and it's like 28 grams of active ingredient to dump in your cup. So how to dose it, mix 1 to 2 scoops of Gorilla Mode in probably 12 to 14 ounces of water and consume 30 minutes prior to training. Obviously, you can change the amount of water based on how strong you want the flavor to be. More water, going to be less strong of a taste. Less water, going to be more strong of a taste. If you're a first-time user or you're like not very tolerant to stimulants, I would start with literally half a scoop and don't exceed 2 scoops in any 24-hour period. In addition, just like with other stimulant-based products, I don't know why this isn't talked about more often, but if you really want the stimulants to hit hard, take it on an empty stomach. And I know that's kind of contradictory to gym performance. It, you know, going to the gym on an empty stomach isn't always ideal for hitting the weights. But if you've tried pre-workouts before, you probably noticed the difference between taking a pre-workout on a fasted versus fed. Like, the way stimulants hit when you're fasted versus fed, it's like night and day. So if you want to get, you know, like, you're still going to get all the performance enhancing benefits in the formula if you take it on a full stomach. However, the stimulants aren't going to hit nearly as hard. So you're going to get less of a cognitive, you know, locked in laser focus than you would if you took it on a empty stomach. Or like, the way it would hit the hardest is if you took it right when you woke up on an empty stomach and went to train. That's where you would feel it the most. So, but that's just how stimulants work. That's not unique to this product. That's just how any stimulant works in general. So, you know, my, you know, word to the wise, in case you are trying to figure out how to, you know, maximize the cognitive enhancing benefits of it, the less food in your stomach, the harder it's going to hit in general. So getting into the Gorilla Mode ingredients breakdown. So 9,000 milligrams of L-citrulline. So L-citrulline is the most effective supplement you can use to boost nitric oxide in the body. Why is nitric oxide important? NO is made naturally in our bodies and plays a significant role in cardiovascular health, dilates blood vessels, vasodilation. I'm sure you've heard that term before, which lowers blood pressure, and increases oxygen in the blood. Nitric oxide acts as a messenger to signal blood vessels to dilate or contract and relax. So sufficient nitric oxide is needed to signal blood vessels to contract or relax to ensure blood is able to flow to and from the heart efficiently. And the production of NO decreases as you age. So this in turn reduces the elasticity of the cardiovascular system and impairs the body's ability to ensure sufficient amount of oxygenated blood gets around to vital organs. So ensuring, first thing you can do, obviously getting a bit off track, but eating enough nitrates and or supplementing with nitric oxide precursors is very important to ensure that your cardiovascular system maintains optimized function as you get older. In addition, maintaining optimal nitric oxide levels will make you more vascular, allow you to get a much better pump in the gym, and improve overall physical performance. So this is why we have such a massive dose of L-citrulline in there. I'm going to get into some of the benefits of it now. Increased muscular endurance. So citrulline has shown to significantly increase muscular endurance, with one study finding that compared to placebo, a single 8,000 milligram dose of citrulline malate increased the number of reps performed per set on every set after set 2. The impact citrulline had on performance increased the more sets were performed. During the last set performed in particular, the group that took citrulline had almost a 53% increase in the number of reps they could perform relative to placebo. So it also decreased muscle soreness by 40% at 24 and 48 hours after the training session compared to placebo. Now, getting into the effect on body composition, there isn't a whole lot of data on the direct effect L-citrulline has on muscle growth and fat loss in humans, but a rodent model assessed the effect citrulline had on body composition and found that 20-month-old rats that were given a diet that included the human equivalent dose of 160 milligrams per kilogram per day for 12 weeks of citrulline had 13% less body fat and 9% more lean body mass relative to the rat fed a standard diet without citrulline supplementation. Visceral fat mass also was reduced by 32% in the citrulline group. The mortality rate of the citrulline group was 0%, and the mortality rate of the standard diet fed rats was 20%. So L-citrulline is one of the most promising supplements on the market, in my opinion, and has significantly more upside above and beyond its increase in vascularity and pumps in the gym. Like, it has a significant array of potential health benefits as well, especially in a cardiovascular context. Getting into the maximum effective dose of L-citrulline, because this is a commonly misinterpreted topic. Citrulline is found in watermelons, and you'd need to eat 1.5 kilograms of watermelon every day to get 3 grams of L-citrulline though, and that's the minimum effective dose. So to get the maximum effective dose of L-citrulline from diet, you would need to eat 5 kilograms of watermelon per day to get 10 grams of L-citrulline. Obviously, nobody is going to eat that much watermelon, and it's obviously not a good idea to begin with, because there's obviously far better ways to allocate your macronutrient and micronutrient allotments. So this is why L-citrulline supplementation is actually a very promising and could very well be worthwhile, not just in a performance enhancing context, but in a cardiovascular context as well. So the problem with citrulline malate in the supplement industry, obviously L-citrulline, like I mentioned, is a great supplement to have in your daily regimen, but there is a red flag around L-citrulline supplementation that you do need to know about. And I'm sure you've seen some supplements that have L-citrulline in them, and some have citrulline malate. So some even say L-citrulline malate on their labels, and this is just a cheap trick oftentimes to deceive customers. So citrulline malate is composed 50% of malic acid, so unless the ratio states otherwise, and authentic citrulline malate is produced by chemically bonding free-form L-citrulline to D-L-malic acid. When L-citrulline is chemically bonded to D-L-malic acid, the end result is citrulline malate, which has unique properties. But the problem with citrulline malate in the supplement industry is that it doesn't have this chemical reaction. It's just citrulline mixed in a giant big mixing vat in the manufacturing facility, and there's no chemical bond like there should be to create authentic citrulline malate. It's just two ingredients being mixed together in a cheap blend, and it's sold as citrulline malate or L-citrulline malate. And in reality, it's just L-citrulline mixed up with a bunch of malic acid. So this isn't a huge deal in itself, but the problem lies in the labeling practices these companies use to artificially inflate the potency of their products. So 6 to 8 grams is seen as the max clinically proven efficacious dosage in the supplement industry in general. At least that's what companies will tell you in their marketing. First of all, we already know the actual maximum efficacious dosage of L-citrulline, of pure L-citrulline, is 10 grams per day. As you can see here, as such, consumption of approximately 1 to 1.5 kilograms per day of fresh watermelon would be needed to achieve the minimum effective dose of L-citrulline, 3 grams per day, and 3.3 to 5 kilograms per day of fresh watermelon would be needed to achieve the maximum effective dose of L-citrulline, 10 grams per day. In addition, the main issue is that the L-citrulline in their product is actually as low as half of the stated label claim. So as I mentioned already, citrulline malate is just a mixture of citrulline and malic acid. So somehow companies are getting away with labeling their products with the chemically bonded form of citrulline malate and claiming they have 6 to 8 grams per serving in their pre-workout when they actually only have 3 to 4 grams of citrulline and 3 to 4 grams of malic acid per serving. So instead of labeling the following, like L-citrulline 3 grams, malic acid 3 grams, the companies are labeling their products like this: citrulline malate 6 grams, or like this, L-citrulline malate 6 grams. So this makes you think that you're getting a high dose of L-citrulline when in reality you're getting the bare minimum effective dose of 3 grams. And sometimes companies will tweak the ratio to be a bit more in favor of a higher citrulline content relative to malic acid, but typically a 2-to-1 ratio. So if you see the following: citrulline malate, and then in brackets 2-to-1, and then 6 grams, this means the company has 4 grams of L-citrulline and 2 grams of malic acid in that dose. So this is the exact manufacturing process involved in producing the L-citrulline and citrulline malate you get in pre-workouts in the supplement industry. So as you can see in the flow chart, the citrulline malate manufacturing flow chart on the right just says mix. If it was authentic citrulline malate, you wouldn't need to mix L-citrulline with malic acid. It would just be chemically bonded together by the end of the manufacturing process. You're not really getting what you're paying for, and most don't realize this is a tactic in the industry to get better margins and artificially inflate a product's perceived efficacy. Even if a product had what on paper appeared to be a top-end efficacious dosage of 8 grams per serving, how much L-citrulline are you actually getting out of that serving? It's like 4 to 6 grams at most. And I have yet to see a pre-workout actually hit the top-end L-citrulline dosage. And of the ones that get close, they use citrulline malate to inflate their label. So in addition, even if you had the bonded version, which supplements don't, reacted citrulline malate will break apart into L-citrulline and malic acid right away after it's mixed in water. So this is all just a trick to artificially inflate a product's perceived potency on a label, as each ingredient should be listed separately. So most supplements have malic acid anyways in the other ingredients section at the bottom, which is still an active ingredient that does have potential performance enhancing benefits that you would get from the malate portion of citrulline malate, and we have this as well in Gorilla Mode in our other ingredients section where it belongs, and we aren't using it to artificially inflate our label. So we just straight up put out a top tier product instead. The citrulline, L-citrulline and malic acid work via a different mechanism of action. Citrulline bypasses the liver and gets converted to arginine, which increases nitric oxide levels in the body. Malic acid is a Krebs cycle intermediary, which counters lactic acid buildup. So how much of each do we need though? With citrulline, we know where the top end data lies, at the 10 gram mark for the max efficacious dose. For malic acid though, we don't. And there is research on citrulline and citrulline malate, but not much data on supplementing with malic acid to replenish depleted levels as a Krebs cycle intermediary. So I don't think we can make a generalized overview on how effective the malic acid component was in the citrulline malate research either, because we can't determine if the results were derived from the malic acid, the L-citrulline, or both. So at the end of the day, for vasodilation, what you should concern yourself with is how much pure L-citrulline is in the pre-workout you're using. So I have yet to see a pre-workout formula with more than 6,000 milligrams per full daily dose of pure L-citrulline. I've only seen a handful of products with 6 grams of pure L-citrulline and another handful of products with 8 grams of citrulline malate, which only actually yields 4 to 5 grams of pure L-citrulline at the end of the day. So I put 9 grams of pure L-citrulline in Gorilla Mode, and even if you decide to only use a half dose, like 1 scoop, you're still going to get 4,500 milligrams of L-citrulline in the product and extend it into 40 serving product, which is still going to be more potent than 90% of the other pre-workouts out there using a half dose. So getting into citrulline versus arginine, it's probably one of the most well-known pump ingredients is arginine. The problem with L-arginine is that it's very ineffective at raising NO levels. So logically, you would assume that taking arginine would be the most effective way to increase arginine levels in the body, but in reality, it's not the case at all. And oral L-arginine is taken up and metabolized by the liver, so much so that it does not actually effectively increase arginine levels, and it may even be unsafe to use because of how much excessive urea it yields after being metabolized. So L-citrulline bypasses the liver and passes freely to the kidneys where it is metabolized to arginine, and the most effective supplement that can be used to increase arginine levels in the body to improve cardiovascular and metabolic health outcomes is L-citrulline. L-citrulline supplementation is shown to lower blood pressure and provide atherogenic endothelial protection. And when it comes to nitric oxide precursors in general that significantly improve pumps, nothing beats an efficacious dose of pure L-citrulline. So creatine monohydrate, 5,000 milligrams. So creatine is the best studied and most effective performance enhancing supplement outside of exogenous hormones and drugs, which shouldn't really count as, performance enhancing supplements anyways. Those would be just drugs in my opinion. So creatine's effect on muscle size and strength. Supplementing with creatine has shown time and time again to significantly improve strength, power output, and muscle size. Creatine's effect on strength is facilitated by increasing the body's stores of phosphocreatine, which is then used during high intensity exercise to produce new ATP. And creatine's effect on muscle size is facilitated by drawing water into the muscle via osmosis, consequently increasing body weight and muscle size. In addition, with the increased strength creatine provides, obviously heavier weights can be used in the gym, which provides more stimulus for growth, which consequently results in more long-term lean muscle accrual. Creatine supplementation also appears to increase the number of myonuclei that satellite cells will donate to damaged muscle fibers, which increases the potential for growth of those fibers. A typical omnivorous diet provides about 1 gram of exogenous creatine per day, which isn't enough to get the benefits you would get from supplementation, and also isn't enough to support health status and methylation in those with genetic polymorphisms, which I'm going to delve into now. It's a lesser, more obscure part of creatine's mechanism and the effect it has on actual health, not just on muscle volume and strength. So this is something that came to my attention more recently, and it's definitely worth listening to because I had no idea how much of an impact creatine can actually have on bodily processes. So creatine's effect on methylation and health status. So about 1 gram of creatine is endogenously produced in the body naturally in young healthy adults, and most of the human body's creatine stores and phosphocreatine stores are found in skeletal muscles, while the remainder is distributed in the blood, the brain, and other tissues. And while there are a host of processes in the body that rely on creatine to be carried out, most of them are often neglected. One of the most notable functions that most people don't know about is creatine's effect on neurological support. In addition, the endogenous synthesis of creatine relies on a process called methylation. Arginine and glycine are combined by an enzyme to form guanidinoacetate, which is then methylated into creatine. The problem is that this process is dependent on a mechanism of action that is commonly inhibited in the general population via either endogenous arginine deficiency, endogenous glycine deficiency, or MTHFR polymorphisms, and had a significant impact on my health status in particular. The MTHFR enzyme is needed for the production of DNA and methylation pathways that are essential for all bodily functions, and genetic variations in this gene results in reduced activity of the enzyme and has been associated with cardiovascular disease, neurological defects, some forms of cancer, and a myriad of other disorders and diseases. Personally, I am homozygous for C677T of MTHFR, which results in a 80 to 90% decrease in my efficiency of processing folic acid. The direct reflection of that in blood biomarkers can be high homocysteine levels and low B12 and folate levels. And as far as how I determine this, I just did it through a simple 23andMe genetic test. And as you can see here, if you look at the marker, the SNP RS1801131, my genotype is TT, which is homozygous for C677T of MTHFR, unfortunately. Upwards of 45% of your body's methylation demands are used to synthesize creatine on a daily basis. So for somebody with an MTHFR polymorphism like me, you can put a significant amount of stress on your methylation pathway and deplete far more methyl groups than you should just to create that 1 gram of creatine that you endogenously produce per day. So, and we lose up to 2 to 3 grams of creatine per day because it converts to creatinine and then is eliminated through the urine. As you can see, adequate replenishment of creatine is probably not being accomplished if you aren't consistently eating a fair bit of meat or fish. And for those with impaired methylation pathways like me, supplementing with exogenous creatine is likely the only way creatine replenishment can be achieved. So one study found that supplementing with 5 grams of creatine per day lowered plasma homocysteine levels by almost 50% in the individual who was homozygous for 677T of MTHFR. Creatine supplementation can significantly lower the body's demands for methylation and prevent the depletion of methyl groups. And this is why I personally supplement with 5 grams of creatine per day. And even if it wasn't in the pre-workout, I would still be taking it separately. But it's in there for the performance enhancing benefits as well as the health support. So do you need to cycle off of creatine though? No, you do not need to cycle off of creatine. Your body does not get used to it, and long-term use has shown to be safe in healthy adults for multiple consecutive years, even at dosages multiple fold higher than the 5 gram saturation dose. The next ingredient is Glycer Pump at 3,000 milligrams. So this is 65% glycerol powder. Glycerol significantly enhances pumps and performance by hyperhydrating the muscle with water. So glycerol's effect on hydration, pumps, and endurance. If you drink a lot of water with nothing else, thinking you're gonna like get a state of hyperhydration in your muscles, your body, what happens is the fall in osmolarity in your body stimulates the kidneys to remove most of the excess water within an hour. So you're not gonna get this hyperhydrating effect just by drinking more water. In fact, it can have the opposite effect if you drink too much water. By adding glycerol to your pre-workout, you can hold upwards of an extra liter of water via this hyperhydrating effect. Hydration is one of the most critical factors when it comes to performance, and aside from massive pumps, glycerol use has shown to increase endurance by as much as 24%, as well as improve aerobic and anaerobic power and performance. Only a 2% loss in fluids has shown to result in a 20% decrease in exercise performance. So hydration is, I can't highlight enough how important staying hydrated is for maximizing optimal exercise performance, weight training, pumps, etc. So Glycer Pump versus other forms of glycerol. We chose the trademarked form of Glycer Pump because it doesn't clump up nearly as much as other forms of glycerol powder on the market, and it's more stable. So glycerol is normally a liquid at standard temperature and pressure, and many supplement companies have attempted to create a powdered form of glycerol that's stable. And normally these products get extremely clumpy. They have horrible viscosity, don't mix well, and they have a very short shelf life because they basically turn into a clumpy disaster in a matter of weeks. So because of this, most companies just avoid this ingredient entirely, and it's seen as a really risky ingredient to put in your formula because it can cause severe clumping just within, weeks to months. Like within the first few weeks or a couple months, it can just like completely ruin your product to a point where most people wouldn't want to buy it because it's just a giant clump. So regular glycerol containing products only yield as low as 10% glycerol, which makes them ineffective. And higher yielding glycerol products can be unstable with complex formulas like ours and result in a clumpy product or complete product failure. So you need something stable that's not going to clump up like crazy. And Glycer Pump is created using unique spray drying technology, yielding a stable powder form of glycerol standardized to 65%. The makers of Glycer Pump claim there's no clumping. It's, way more stable, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to be transparent with you guys and tell you I've seen firsthand that Glycer Pump isn't clump free in high doses when mixed with high concentrations of other ingredients. However, it is much better than the other alternatives. So that's why I was really on the fence about including this ingredient in the product, but with hesitation, I still included it because basically it's extremely effective for pumps and for overall muscle performance and hydration. So I basically want to get this product. I want to do smaller batches of the product and get it to your guys' hands quick to make sure the stuff is fresh when you guys get it and reduce the chance of clumping. So obviously there has to be some strategy around the manufacturing process, and it's not really ideal for a company that's trying to expand, but this is a very good ingredient that works extremely well. So I wanted to include it and get it in a format that isn't going to turn the product into a rock, essentially. So this is the best standardized form of glycerol powder there is, and it's going to have the least chance of clumping, but it's still going to cause clumping. So with this in mind, store Gorilla Mode in a cool, dry place, and if it clumps, that's honestly just what comes with the territory of a product dosed like this. So for the performance enhancing benefits, a little bit of chance of clumping is worth it in my opinion, because when the powder hits the water, even if it's clumped up, it's going to dissolve and mix just fine. It's just, you might have to use, I was actually considering putting a custom like Gorilla Mind pickaxe, like a mini pickaxe with each tub in each order, but as like partially a joke and like partially being half serious that you might end up needing it with this product. But in reality, if it ends up clumping, which is a very likely possibility with the concentrations of ingredients in this formula, just get out a spoon or a knife and chop up the clumps, and it's going to mix just fine when it hits the water. But just keep in mind that if you don't use this stuff like fairly quickly, it's very, very prone to clumping. And it was like just on the borderline of me considering, is this something I could include in here still? And it's just stable enough that I feel like it's definitely worth including. So we're going to see how this goes, but I think it's worth adding even with the potential for clumping. So just be aware of that and store it accordingly, and just be, prepared, because that is a very likely outcome with a product. It just comes with the territory of a product dosed like this, unfortunately. So the next ingredient is betaine anhydrous at 2,500 milligrams. So this is also known as trimethylglycine, and it acts as a methyl donor in the body as well as an osmolyte. So earlier in the creatine breakdown, I briefly outlined the importance of having a sufficient amount of methyl donors available for methylation processes in the body, including the endogenous synthesis of creatine. For some individuals, depending on PEMT gene variations, betaine can actually substitute for folate and B12 in the regeneration of methionine and can be choline sparing via this mechanism. And it can also provide needed methyl donors when over depletion occurs in genetically predisposed individuals like myself, or people who do not supplement with creatine or have other deficiencies. So that's one, the health aspect. But as far as an osmolyte, betaine helps balance fluid levels in and outside of cells. So the main reason I included betaine was for its ability to induce intracellular hyperhydration. So by improving hydration status in cells, betaine increases the pump you get in the gym and can help prevent dehydration during exercise and improve overall performance. Research has also shown that betaine supplementation may reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease as well as improve digestion and liver function. In a performance enhancing context, betaine supplementation is also shown to increase power, endurance, muscle growth, and fat loss. So how significant will this effect on body composition be in practical application though? Negligible in my honest opinion, but the enhanced pump makes this ingredient worthwhile to add into the formula in my opinion. That's why it's in there at a 2,500 milligram dose. The next ingredient is L-tyrosine at 1,500 milligrams. So L-tyrosine it's an amazing cognitive enhancing amino acid that acts by balancing neurotransmitter levels in the brain. Its primary role is as the direct precursor to thyroxine and to the neurotransmitter dopamine, epinephrine, and norepinephrine. And L-tyrosine shines, in my opinion, in its ability to improve mental sharpness, focus, energy levels, and cause mood elevation is very strongly associated with its use as well. Getting into the comparison between L-tyrosine and N-acetyltyrosine. L-tyrosine is the most bioavailable form of tyrosine bar none. In short, N-acetyl L-tyrosine is very inefficiently converted by the body to tyrosine, and even IVing N-acetyl tyrosine can't elevate plasma tyrosine levels to a significant degree, let alone via oral ingestion. So some companies claim increased water solubility of N-acetyl tyrosine and claim it's superior, but it's all just marketing hype. And this is easily disproved by showing just how poorly N-acetyl tyrosine converts to tyrosine in the body. So as you can see in the graph here, this depicts arterial concentrations of N-acetyl L-tyrosine, and abbreviated as NAT, and tyrosine, TYR, during intravenous infusion of N-acetyl tyrosine. So as you can see, even by IVing this stuff, tyrosine levels barely even budge. So this just shows how poor N-acetyl L-tyrosine actually is as a supplement. The same kind of tactic used to try and market new and improved forms of creatine that at the end of the day do not yield any additional benefit above monohydrate and just feature an inflated price tag. In our first batch of Gorilla Mind, we actually had N-acetyl L-tyrosine in the formulas based on these claims of improved water solubility by our manufacturer at the time, and after delving into the data further, I realized the massive difference in bioavailability and swapped out N-acetyl L-tyrosine for straight L-tyrosine and found a better manufacturing facility, and all batches of Gorilla Mind products since then have featured L-tyrosine instead of N-acetyl L-tyrosine, and as does the Gorilla Mode product, features L-tyrosine. And it's an extremely effective nootropic agent in my opinion, and definitely adds to the cognitive enhancing benefits of this formula. Agmatine sulfate 1000 milligrams. So agmatine has shown to induce nitric oxide production via the same processes as arginine, but it does so far more effectively, and this results in even bigger pumps in the gym and improved overall performance. Agmatine is also neuroprotective against excitotoxicity and stroke, and also has anti-anxiety and antidepressant-like effects that may enhance state of well-being and just in general mood elevation with supplementation. Agmatine is also shown to manipulate pain receptors in the body, which may result in an increased pain tolerance during intense training. The next ingredient is Kanna Scaledium tortuosum at 500 milligrams. So I've had a fair bit of experience with Kanna over the years, as one of my business partners, Chris Diotis, has had it available for sale via Happy Hippo Herbals, his company, for years now. And Kanna supplementation has been found to effectively lower stress, elevate mood, and increase focus. And I noticed it started being included in certain pre-workouts earlier in the year. You know, I thought to myself, that's an excellent idea. Like, we should do that too, and added it in as a complementary cognitive aid to the rest of the nootropic blend and stimulant complex. So Kanna works mainly by increasing the amount of serotonin available in the brain, and is typically utilized for its anti-anxiety and mood elevating effects. Anecdotally, a dose between 200 to 500 milligrams of Kanna has shown to be ideal for oral ingestion in a mixed drink or a tea, and higher dosages between 1 to 2 grams have been associated with unwanted side effects like dizziness. So Kanna has no addictive properties, and it's not hallucinogenic. One important thing to keep in mind though with Kanna is it has a high affinity for the serotonin transporter, so it's plausible that Kanna can interfere with SSRI pharmaceuticals. So keep that in mind, especially if you run Gorilla Mode by your doctor before you use it alongside any prescription medications. Obviously, that should go without saying. The next ingredient is caffeine anhydrous, 350 milligrams. So caffeine, the most well-known central nervous stimulant on earth. Aside from the obvious cognitive enhancing benefits of caffeine, it is also shown to increase power output and training volume, as well as lower fatigue. One study in particular assessed how much caffeine can increase workload even in sleep deprived individuals, and in this double-blind crossover study, 16 professional rugby players ingested either a placebo or 4 milligrams per kilogram of caffeine 1 hour before exercise. The effects of caffeine were assessed on well-slept individuals, which would be 8 hours or more, and sleep-deprived individuals, which is 6 hours or less. And athletes were asked to perform as many repetitions on each set as possible without failure. And sleep deprivation produced a very large decrease in total load in the placebo group, but caffeine ingestion in the sleep deprived group was able to completely offset that loss of performance. And caffeine also resulted in a moderate increase in total load in the well slept group. Also notable is the fact that testosterone response to exercise increased with caffeine compared with placebo. Caffeine also has a significant impact on metabolism, metabolic rate, energy expenditure, calories burned per day, A single dose oral administration of 100 milligrams of caffeine increased the resting metabolic rate of both lean and post-obese human volunteers by 3 to 4% over 150 minutes. Repeated caffeine administration of 100 milligrams every 2 hours over a 12-hour span increased energy expenditure of both subject groups by 8 to 11%. The net effect was a significant increase in daily energy expenditure of 150 calories in lean volunteers and 79 calories in post-obese subjects. Commonly consumed doses of caffeine can have a significant impact on energy balance and staying lean. Stimulants like caffeine can help suppress appetite as well, which is an additional, complementary way to achieve, a sustainable calorie deficit and stick to a strict caloric allotment and further enhance the ease in losing fat. Something that I wanted to cover as well is stacking caffeine with L-theanine to help you get to sleep easier after using pre-workouts or caffeine-based supplements, and to smooth out the jitters if you have a very, very low tolerance for stimulants. So if you get the jitters with even low doses of caffeine, L-theanine is definitely worth looking into, in my opinion. L-theanine works by targeting 4 key neurotransmitters: GABA, serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. These neurotransmitters are responsible for feelings of attention, stress, arousal, and pleasure. By mitigating the overactivity of neurons, L-theanine can help calm the brain down and reduce stress and lower levels of anxiety. And this is why L-theanine complements stimulants like caffeine so well, as it takes the edge off of stimulants that can cause jitters and overstimulation in some individuals. One notable rodent model even showed that L-theanine supplementation can partially counteract caffeine-induced sleep disturbances. L-theanine can also significantly improve memory, focus, and attention to detail. It's just a good nootropic in general. Stacking. If you wanted to get a good dose of L-theanine, you can stack Gorilla Mind Smooth with Gorilla Mode to get a large dose of L-theanine that will take the edge off of the stimulants in the pre-workout if you're very stimulant sensitive, or just go buy L-theanine separately. It's very cheap and you can get it on Amazon or on iHerb or wherever you shop for your single ingredients health supplements. And it's definitely worth looking into if you're very stimulant sensitive. As far as caffeine dosage, in general, healthy adults can safely consume up to 400 milligrams of caffeine per day. Obviously, that doesn't mean you should use that high of a dosage, but use caffeine relative to your individual needs and your individual tolerance. So for some, starting with as low as, a quarter to a half scoop of Gorilla Mode, which a half scoop would be 87.5 milligrams of caffeine alongside the other complementary stimulants and nootropics in the formula, may be more than enough to achieve topped out cognitive stimulation without getting jitters and other caffeine-induced side effects. For those with a much higher tolerance, though, the maximum daily dose of Gorilla Mode, 2 scoops, delivers 350 milligrams of caffeine. And if that isn't enough caffeine for you to feel it pre-workout, then you probably need to cycle off of caffeine and all stimulants for at least 1 to 2 weeks, in my opinion, because that's a significantly high dose to take all at once and should be more than satisfactory in itself, in addition with the complementary stimulants and other bioavailability and half-life extending properties of this formula. Next ingredient is N-phenethyl-dimethylamine citrate, 350 milligrams. So PEA, phenylethylamine, is popularly known as the love drug in the brain. PEA increases the release of serotonin, adrenaline, dopamine, and noradrenaline in the brain. These neurotransmitters can significantly impact cognitive function, state of well-being, energy levels, and overall mood. And the reason it's called the love drug is because it promotes the same feelings of infatuation experienced during the early phases of love, and exhilarating things like skydiving, certain psychoactive drugs, and eating large amounts of chocolate can also raise PEA levels. So obviously something like as feel good as this, nootropic is obviously a desired outcome by many people. The problem is orally ingested PEA only has a half-life of 5 to 10 minutes, which is why it's nearly useless in all supplements that feature it. And this is because monoamine oxidase, MAO, quickly breaks it down. MAO is an enzyme in the body that breaks down PEA, dopamine, as well as other neurotransmitters. And this is why effective PEA-based formulas almost always feature some sort of MAO inhibitor. By using MAO inhibitors like hordenine with PEA, you can effectively prevent MAO from breaking down PEA as quickly, consequently allowing PEA to exert its full effects in the body and significantly increasing its active life. The PEA plus hordenine stack is one of the components of the Gorilla Mind Smooth formula, the less aggressive, stimulant-free nootropic formula I developed for Gorilla Mind. And I wanted to go in another direction with this pre-workout formula though, and include a compound that is harder hitting, as the effects of PEA and hordenine combined they're effective, but they're a bit subtle for a pre-workout in my opinion. So this is why it's in Smooth, which is our less aggressive nootropic formula, basically meant for cognitive enhancement without a massive increase in energy, essentially, like hence the Smooth. So this is why I decided to include instead a very high dose of N-phenylethyl dimethylamine citrate in Gorilla Mode. So this ingredient mimics the actions of adrenaline, noradrenaline, dopamine, and serotonin, and keeps levels elevated throughout your entire workout. The reason it lasts longer than PEA is that it has 2 methyl groups connected to the nitrogen in the molecule, which acts as a safeguard of sorts to prevent it from being broken down by MAO as quickly. And because of these methyl groups, it doesn't require an MAO inhibitor to be stacked with it in order to last throughout the duration of your workout. This is the chemical structure of phenylethylamine, PEA. The nitrogen atom in PEA is known as the amine and needs to be protected from MAO in order to prolong its effects in the brain. So as you can see by looking at the chemical structure, there's nothing attached to the nitrogen atom protecting it from being cleaved by the MAO enzyme. So now if we look at the chemical structure of N-phenylethyl dimethylamine citrate, you can still see the same PEA backbone of the molecule, but there's 2 methyl groups attached to the nitrogen atom to prevent MAO from cleaving the amine as quickly. So this consequently increases the duration of its cognitive enhancing effects for the majority of your workout. And in conjunction with the 350 milligram dose of caffeine, the high dose of N-phenylethyl dimethylamine citrate in this formula can significantly increase focus, intensity, energy levels, and overall performance. The next ingredient is BioPerine, which is a trademarked form of black pepper fruit extract standardized to 95% piperine. Black pepper extract is a very effective CYP3A4 and P-glycoprotein inhibitor. These enzymes break down molecules like caffeine and noradrenaline in the body. So by prolonging the breakdown of the cognitive enhancing ingredients in the formula, BioPerine extends how long they work for, and can also significantly increase their bioavailability in the body. Basically, what it does, BioPerine makes the stimulants hit harder and last longer in the formula. And in addition to that, BioPerine has its own inherent MAO inhibiting properties, thus further potentiating the effects of the N-phenylethyl dimethylamine citrate. And there's 10 milligrams of BioPerine in the formula. The next ingredient is huperzine A at 400 micrograms. Huperzine A works by inhibiting acetylcholinesterase in the brain, which is an enzyme that breaks down the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is not only a major regulator of cognitive performance, but it's also an important neurotransmitter needed for optimal muscular contractions during exercise. And huperzine A has shown to promote neurogenesis, which is the birth of new neurons in the brain, as well as exert a neuroprotective effect of sorts on existing neurons in the brain. In turn, huperzine A has shown to enhance memory, focus, and overall cognitive function. Huperzine A is one of the most potent nootropics that you can actually really feel when you use it, and it complements the other stimulants and nootropics in this formula perfectly. Getting into some of the ingredients I didn't include in the formula and why. So these are some notable ones that you often see in pre-workouts, and I kind of just want to go down the list to explain why I feel like they're poor choices to include in a pre-workout and why they can ruin a pre-workout and why I didn't include them. So the first one, beta-alanine. So this is the ingredient that makes your skin itchy and has you sitting there scratching your face and ass between sets. And I assume it's included in pre-workouts because you can blatantly feel something when you take it. So people associate, feeling something with the product being potent. And personally, I can't stand the itchy skin effect it has. And it can be bad enough that it ruins a pre-workout based on that for me. And in addition, just getting into the performance enhancing aspect of it, it has a negligible effect on performance too, which is why I hate this ingredient, to be honest. Acute sporadic bumps in beta-alanine a few times a week through your pre-workout will do next to nothing, because you're not getting enough beta-alanine per day to build up to the point where it's actually effective at inducing any sort of performance enhancing benefit. Even if you were to take it correctly, dosing it multiple times per day for weeks on end at a high enough dosage, the impact on performance, it's notable, but it's still fairly insignificant at the end of the day for the amount of commitment and dose and amount of like skin itchiness you have to go through to achieve this. This study showed that the median effect of beta alanine supplementation is a 2.85% improvement in the outcome of an exercise measure when a median total of 179 grams of beta alanine is supplemented. So 179 grams is an amount, nobody is going to be getting through their pre-workout, however many times per week. And for a 2.85% improvement in performance with tons of itchiness and uncomfortability to go along with it. So just doesn't, make logical sense to me to use it. And another study showed that although some laboratory-based studies showed an ergogenic effect with beta alanine supplementation, there was a lack of field-based research and training in competition studies or competition settings. There was an unclear effect of beta alanine on competition performance compared to placebo with no meaningful changes in blood chemistry. While there was a transient improvement on training performance after 4 weeks with beta alanine, there was an unclear effect at 10 weeks and no meaningful changes in blood chemistry. Beta alanine supplementation appears to have minimal effect on swimming performance in non-laboratory controlled real-world training and competition settings. So just, the pros relative to the cons, just, it's just not there for me in terms of beta alanine. The next ingredient I want to talk about is leucine. So taking leucine post-workout is one of the best things you can do to promote muscle growth, but taking leucine in your pre-workout has shown to diminish muscular performance via the inhibition of glycogen to glucose conversion within muscle cells and insulin signaling. So on top of that too, leucine can prevent the uptake of tyrosine into the brain, which would consequently inhibit dopamine production and do the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish with our cognitive enhancing nootropics in the formula. The next ingredients I want to talk about are antioxidants and vitamins in general. So one of the worst things you can do is take antioxidants before you work out. So I don't know why so many formulas, if they just want to look more complete or something, they'll have like a big stacked list of, vitamins and antioxidants in their formula, to either at, dosages that are, just included for the sake of making their formula look super impressive, I guess. I don't really know what the point is, but the thing is the hormetic response to training is what induces muscle growth in the first place. Like the stress and damage induced by weightlifting or exercise is needed to facilitate muscular recovery and progress. So the reactive oxygen species produced from your intense training assists with that process and is also why drugs like ibuprofen can inhibit muscle growth so severely. The inflammatory response to training is what we want. Like we want acute inflammation after training because that's what signals our body to recover, and inhibiting that response with antioxidants or anti-inflammatory drugs, you prevent your body from breaking down and recovering the way it needs to in order to grow. So a pre-workout formula with a bunch of vitamins and antioxidants is more likely to inhibit your gains than to help. The next ingredient is sodium. So sodium is one of the most critical and overlooked components of a diet designed to optimize exercise performance. But what you have to keep in mind is just because sodium's in a product, it doesn't mean it's helping. And this goes back to the artificially inflated labels with the citrulline malate. Like you're not gonna get enough sodium in a pre-workout without it tasting terrible. And I wouldn't, that's why Gatorade is such a stupid drink in my opinion. Like they make it to taste good, not to give you enough sodium that you actually need. So I wouldn't insult your intelligence by putting a suboptimal amount of sodium in the pre-workout, which is what these other companies are doing. Like if you want to have optimal sodium intake, which I highly recommend, it's one of the most critical components to getting a good pump and getting, good contractions in the gym and all that, good stuff. Toss and wash a half teaspoon of salt pre-workout alongside Gorilla Mode and another half teaspoon post-workout. Like that's the best thing you can do. Get a half teaspoon of salt and literally just throw it in the back of your throat and swallow it. Because if I ever put out a product with sodium in it for, pump or whatever, I'm going to put it in at a high enough dose to actually be beneficial for you. And which is why you would need to take a half teaspoon of salt to actually get some sort of benefit pre-workout or post-workout. And this amount of salt per serving is going to extremely negatively impact the taste of the product. And is why no company will put a proper amount of sodium in their pre-workout. But unlike the other companies, I'm actually going to be transparent about why my product tastes like shit, because there's no way you can make a pre-workout that doesn't taste like ass with a proper amount of sodium in it. So either toss and wash the sodium, or, you know, you're not going to be getting the benefits from the sodium in a pre-workout, even if it's claimed on it. Like, I don't get why these companies will do this. They'll literally put in like a micro dose of sodium just so then they can claim all the benefits that go along with sodium. But it's like, in reality, you're getting like almost nothing. So a product would not taste good if it had an adequate amount of sodium in it. So just like, you know, do yourself a favor, get out the salt yourself, which is, you know, the cheapest thing you can get, and just toss and wash a half teaspoon pre-workout and post-workout for optimized sodium intake around your workout. At least that's what I would do, and that's what I do personally. And if I ever do put out a product with sodium in it, it's going to be salty as fuck, just so you guys know. So you're going to know it's accurately, it's going to have a dose that actually works. But in general, it's so cheap, you might as well, like, there's not really a point of having it in a pre-workout when you can just like toss and wash it separately, in my opinion, without having to force yourself to go through the duration of drinking a whole shake with that, you know, salty taste, when you can just toss and wash it. So just do that. The next ingredients are yohimbine and rauwolscine. I don't know how to pronounce rauwolscine. It's alpha yohimbine. So both of these stimulants are great fat burning agents, and you can definitely feel them hit really hard. But the problem that I have with them is the way they hit doesn't feel good at all. And both of these stimulants can easily ruin an otherwise good pre-workout formula, in my opinion. So it's very hit and miss for some people with these two ingredients. And every time I take yohimbine or alpha yohimbine, I feel like I'm going hypoglycemic mid-workout, and it actually negatively impacts my performance. Like, I actually feel like I'm going hypo in the middle of my training session. So the only time I use either of these ingredients is on their own when I'm fasted before low intensity cardio. And pre-workout, I steer clear of these ingredients entirely. And, you know, they can ruin a good pre-workout because they're so hit and miss for people in terms of who likes them and who gets this like horrible response to them. The next ingredient, L-carnitine. Oral L-carnitine is useless. There's not a whole lot to say about it. It's not bioavailable, and using it orally is a waste of money. So I'm not sure why it's included in pre-workouts at all. It's like, I guess, the same thing to make it look, you know, appealing on the label, when in reality it just doesn't do anything. The next ingredient, isopropyl norepinephrine. So this is a newer stimulant that's, you know, getting a bit of hype, and it's because it hits really hard. So it's sort of seen as like a potential DMAA replacement. But the problem is it hits really hard, but it just feels like you're going to have a heart attack whenever you use it. So this is something I was actually experimenting with when I was trying to build the stimulant complex for Gorilla Mode. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to put in it. This is an ingredient I experimented with, and even at moderate dosages, isopropyl norepinephrine literally just jacks my heart rate through the roof, to the point where I'm like actually worried about my health, and it doesn't improve my focus or energy much at all. So it's like the risk to reward on that ingredient is just like not there for me, and like it actually like makes me worried when I take it. It was like my resting heart rate would just like go through the roof, and I would get like almost no notable cognitive enhancement either. Like, I'd be awake, but it was like the focus and drive was just not there, and it just like, you know, just seemed like a poor ingredient in my opinion in general. So should you ever cycle off of Gorilla Mode? So I advise that you always cycle off of stimulant based products for at least 5 to 7 days straight every month. This is how you can stay sensitive to them. And during this time, you can use nootropics or a stimulant-free nootropic formula, or, you know, a stimulant-free pump product, which, you know, hopefully we're going to have in the near future, but, you know, or another companies for now, because we don't have that right now, to support enhanced cognitive function in the absence of your standard stimulant cocktail. How to combine Gorilla Mode with Gorilla Mind Rush. So this is obviously something that's going to be asked. If you use the maximum daily dose of Gorilla Mind Rush or Gorilla Mode on any given day, do not use the other product on that day at all. Like, the formulas are designed in a way that you can stack them together if you want to for an enhanced level of focus, but the only way you're going to be able to do that is if your total daily dosage is no higher than what would equate to the max like dosage of total stimulants in either product alone. So from that, what I mean is basically in terms of the strength of the stimulants, the stimulant complex in each formula, treat 3 capsules of Gorilla Mind Rush like the equivalent of the amount of stimulants in 1 scoop of Gorilla Mode. So if you can handle 6 capsules of Gorilla Mind Rush per day, which is the max daily dose, or if you can handle 2 scoops of Gorilla Mode, which is the max daily dose of Gorilla Mode, on days where you want to combine them, you can use, for example, 3 capsules of Gorilla Mind Rush with 1 scoop of Gorilla Mode, or you can, you know, do 1.5 scoops of Gorilla Mode with, you know, 1 to 2 caps of Gorilla Mind Rush, or a half scoop of Gorilla Mode with 4 to 5 capsules of Rush. And, obviously the combinations are endless, but you kind of get the idea. Basically, in general, look at the caffeine content of the amount of Gorilla Mind Rush you want to use and the caffeine content of the amount of Gorilla Mode you want to use, and ensure that your total combined dosage does not exceed 350 milligrams per day, regardless of how you combine them together. That's what I would advise. The only reason you'd want to combine them is the combination of stimulants in Gorilla Mind Rush results in a bit more tunnel vision, like laser focus, than the stimulant complex in Gorilla Mode. But the thing is the stimulants in Gorilla Mind Rush can be a bit more vasoconstrictive than the stimulants in Gorilla Mode. So basically, if you're willing to compromise a bit of the pump you can get from Gorilla Mode to get like a deeper level of laser focus than you would otherwise, like the stimulant complex is still more than sufficient to get what you need out of it in terms of, get that drive, motivation, huge boost in energy, that focus that you need to really, get after the weights. But if you want, like, the tunnel vision is pretty unmatched with Gorilla Mind Rush. So if you really want to, combine them, just, you're going to trade off a little bit of pump from Gorilla Mode in order to go throw in that extra, deeper level of laser focus with Gorilla Mind Rush. Like, by all means, you can do that as long as you keep your total daily dosage no higher than 350 milligrams of total caffeine is my recommendation. And, obviously the safe dose for caffeine is up to 400 milligrams for healthy adults, but you have to keep in mind there are other stimulants in these formulas that, stack the amount of stimulation you get. So it's not just like 350 milligrams, you're under your total allotment. Like, keep in mind there's other very potent stimulants in both of these formulas that you need to account for as well. So keep your total daily dosage no higher than where the 350 milligram dose of caffeine hits is my suggestion. So in conclusion, what can you expect in general from Gorilla Mode? In general, you can expect a massive increase in nitric oxide levels, intramuscular hydration, and as significant of a boost in muscle strength and endurance as you're going to get from a legal non-hormonal pre-workout. So this product is maxed out in the pump and performance category, as well as in the energy and focus category. It has a massive dose of L-citrulline, glycer pump, agmatine, creatine, and betaine to saturate your muscles with blood volume and intracellular hydration. It also has a very potent stimulant complex comprised of a high dose of caffeine and N-phenyl dimethylamine citrate, and the high-dosed nootropics as well, L-tyrosine, Kana, and Huperzine A, top off the cognitive enhancing component of Gorilla Mode and contribute to a significant increase in energy, focus, and overall mental sharpness. So if you want to give it a shot, the link is in the video description below. Check it out and let me know what you guys think. Really appreciate your guys' support. And, if you made it through this entire video, you're a trooper, because that is a lot of content. I'm just looking at the time code right now in terms of how long this was. But anyways, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your patience in waiting for me to come out with this formula. I hope you guys are as stoked about it as I am. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, drop a comment. Helps the algorithm out and helps push the video to new viewers, which is, very helpful and very much appreciated when you guys do that. Check out the podcast, link in the description below. Drop a 5-star rating if you don't mind. That helps the algorithm on the podcast side of things. Check out Gorilla Mode, Gorilla Mind Rush, Gorilla Mind Smooth, as well as Gorilla Dream on the GorillaMind.com website. Link in video description below. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.